there again, folks. Welcome back to Remember11, the Age of Infinity. Last time, Satoru began looking at the video camera. Video cameras, that's not the word. Video footage is the more appropriate phrase. And going back over the different days, I'm trying to find out what his body was doing at times. So let us continue. Friday, January 13th, I recall that things were relatively calm on that day. But relatively, I meant compared to the other days. My body didn't experience any threats to its life, nor did anyone attack anyone else. What a relief. It is relatively normal. Therefore, there wasn't any need to double check the files for the 13th. I skipped over that day and moved on to the 14th. Ooh, Saturday the 14th. That's the scariest day of all, especially to buy a hamburger. Reference that maybe one or two people might get ever. That was the day I met Inamoto Naoya. I listened to him talk about the space-time transfer, and then he nearly killed me. However, I transferred again the moment before it happened, and once I returned, it was Inamoto who lay dead, not me. Nothing that occurred prior to that moment was very important. Just what had happened down in the basement storeroom. That was the only thing that bothered me. Okay, cool. I was fixated. I wonder if there is a camera angle of that moment. Extract the scene of my struggle with Inamoto and played it back. Time 6:11 p.m. in the basement storeroom. Darkness, a black screen. But unlike the earthquake several days ago, this time the data itself had been properly recorded. The emergency lights illuminated the area. Within the dimness on the screen, I saw human shadows writhe. But because of that, I couldn't tell what was happening. Raised the brightness of the footage and increased the color saturation and tone at the same time, which raised the contrast considerably. That did it. The contours of the objects on the screen became fantastically clear. Only the surfaces that the light managed to hit stood out, but I had no trouble distinguishing the human figures in the image. Display showed Inamoto and me grappling with each other hand to hand. Inamoto was straddling my body, pressing hard on my nose and mouth with both hands. I had no memory of this. In other words, the transfer had already occurred by this time. My body struggled violently, thrashing its arms and legs, and caught Inamoto in the chin with a strong right hook. Inamoto staggered. My body seized that chance to escape Inamoto's hold. After that, a long flight ensued. With Kokoro's consciousness controlling it, my body left the building once and re-entered through the window of my room. Rushed over to the door, then suddenly looked up, as though surprised. Timidly it left the room, passed through the dining area, then once again descended the stairs into the basement storeroom. So he'd been waiting for me. Inamoto's hand shot out and made contact with my shoulder. My body fell. Inamoto sprang after it. His hand still grasped the palely glinting knife. Inamoto inverted the knife and swung it down right at my throat. At that moment, Inamoto disappeared from the screen. For a moment, I didn't know what was happening. I rewound and played the video back in slow motion. When I did, I saw Hattori tear across the screen with the speed of a gale, taking down Inamoto with a perfectly aimed body blow. Seriously, she's a kung fu master. This wasn't the first time I'd seen this image, but I still couldn't help but stare at it in shock. Kokoro and I had been saved by Hattori. I hadn't heard a peep out of either Kokoro or Hattori to that effect. As I thought that, the events on screen were still rushing by. I returned the playback setting to normal speed and fixed my eyes on the screen. Inamoto got to his feet and stared into the darkness. He appeared to be frantically searching for something. Looking closely, I could tell that the knife had disappeared from his hand. He must have dropped it at the moment he fell. The knife was now in his hand, now in my hand. Oops. My left hand. It was my left hand that gripped the knife. Inamoto shook his head in disbelief as he continued to survey the occluding darkness. With faltering steps, my body rushed toward him from behind. It didn't make any attempt to conceal itself, but neither did it scream out or make any other threatening movements. It's almost like a kitten. A kitten that reacted to anything that moved, jumping around innocently and finally pouncing. Sound of footsteps seemed to have finally reached Inamoto's ears as he suddenly turned around. Body aimed for his chest and rushed forward to cling to it. Just like a kitten frolicking playfully. Their two bodies overlapped as they flew through the air, drawing a slow parabola in the fall. Right after that, the display went white. The picture had jumped because the brightness was too high. Cleared all the adjustments I'd made to the footage, then I rewinded a bit and played it back again. From the ceiling of the dim storeroom, after flickering several times, the lights came back on and flooded the room. He was the one responsible for that. Lowering his finger from the switch, he turned around. Yeah, I could have timed that burp, almost like I had planned it. He pressed a hand over his mouth, his eyes as round as saucers. An expression of terror. Following the direction of Uni's stare, I saw... Yeah, we've seen that. Inamoto's bloody corpse crumpled on the floor. Yesterday, Uni had said to me, Okay. As if to verify Uni's words, the screen all too clearly showed an image of me toying with the corpse. I'm laughing, it's true. Straddling Inamoto, I slashed him over and over again with a knife I gripped in both hands, digging chunks of flesh from his chest, piercing right through his belly. As if scribbling randomly on a piece of paper, I ran the knife all over the body. That's not disturbing at all. Soundlessly, the knife was drawn into the lifeless slab of meat. The foolish smile of utter ecstasy on my face, I was wholeheartedly enjoying the sensation of the knife sinking into the meat. Inamoto was still, his clouded eyes fixed on the empty air above him. With every thrust of my knife, more blood foamed out of his mouth and nostrils and ran off onto the floor. Yeah, we kind of get it. We got it, man. We got it. You can slow down a little bit on the details. Endlessly persisted in this terrible game, doing it over and over and over again. Continued moving my hands across the cold slab of meat, never resting for a moment. Okay. I suddenly shook my own head as I came to my senses. The person being projected here wasn't me. It's Fuyukawa Kokoro. However, having seen it so plainly, I could no longer think of it as just an illusion. What if the one who killed Inamoto wasn't Kokoro, but actually me? I had completely lost myself without even realizing it and fallen to such a level of barbarism. In reality, the person there on screen couldn't be anyone but me. Using common sense, the most obvious explanation for this gruesome murder was that I was the culprit. I unconsciously looked away. I muttered those words again and again, trying to convince myself. By the time I lifted my head back up, the next scene had begun to unfold. My body got up from Inamoto. It stared at the blood-drenched knife as though it were something mysterious. Right there next to it was Satoru. She was crouching in the puddle of blood, splashing around playfully in it. Huh. The blood flew up as splashes and fell back down as red rain. Falling raindrops disappeared back into the puddle, creating ripples before they vanished. As she watched him, Hattori's face broke into a huge, gleeful smile. She was laughing again. This has already exceeded the limits of my understanding. It's definitely weird. Definitely weird. I shouted violently, as though suddenly cold. Yeah, I mean, I guess somehow I don't know anyway how, but I'm guessing maybe somehow, the babies, Mitsumi's, babies are somehow in this situation, because he keeps mentioning playfully doing stuff, you know what I mean? Like a kid playing, or a kitten playing, as he was describing. I mean, he was talking about Satoru was doing that too, like in his room when he was in the shower, or when Kokoro was in the shower, whichever one. It's kind of a pretty crazy thing. Here's a pretty random thought. Yeah, here's a pretty random thought. The way he was talking at one point, it was like he was inside the womb. That's when it was like I showed a picture of the baby or babies. I can't remember if it showed two or not. But I just randomly just thought, one of the freakiest things. It might be a good thing our memories don't work very good when we're born, because that would probably be a very traumatic moment. Being pushed out. That would be a very weird time to have a transference. if that's time involved too as well. Oh man, that would be. Yeah, to be able to remember something like that, that would be very weird. But anyway, that's completely not related or important to, well, not directly. Yeah, it's got to be something to do with the kids, though, because they're definitely acting kind of like childish. I guess you could say. Just don't know how exactly. And I may be wrong too, but that's what I'm thinking right now. It was madness. This was an act committed by a madman, and what was it? Couldn't believe that a human was capable of this. The beings on screen were just a pair of demons who'd assumed human form, and were amusing themselves for a little while with this. I couldn't see it any other way. 7:17 p.m. Basement storeroom. On screen, I suddenly raised my head and looked around the room. Noticed a knife in my left hand. Okay, yeah. An expression of shock and deep disturbance came to my face. On top of that, the body of Inamoto lying in front of me had undergone a drastic change. As I saw it, every muscle in my jaw stiffened and began twitching convulsively. I placed my hand against my chest in an attempt to return my breathing to normal. Yes, a clear and obvious chance. A space-time transfer had occurred. I could clearly remember these events. For a while, the me on screen stood staring at the corpse, immobile as a cast-off shell of my actual self. The corner of the screen contained a digital timestamp. The indicator for seconds was still moving. Besides that, everything was still. And then 7:31 p.m. A black shadow crossed the screen. Determined to catch it and reveal its true identity, this time I tried viewing the footage from another angle. What I saw projected there was Satoru, now dyed the vivid red of fresh blood. She toyed with a knife she held in both hands. She'd stolen it from me. Satoru was facing me and we were having a conversation. Only her lips moved in the silence of the frame. Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yo, Satoru, which you prefer? Hey, which one? I mean, you like to stab, you want to be stabbed. Yo, pick one. Which you prefer? I'm assuming she said it in that tone. I couldn't hear her voice, but I remember those words all too well. If I remembered correctly, my consciousness should jump to the shelter cabin right after this. Just as expected, there was a change in the footage. 7:34, basement storeroom. Saw my body react, giving a quick shiver, just like it had 17 minutes before. The shocking disturbance registered on his face. When else Inamoto's dead body, it covered his mouth with its hand as though fighting back nausea. Something startled it and it raised its head. Hattori was standing right before its eyes. Hattori's eyes were blank. She blinked several times as though playing dumb. Eventually she noticed the abnormality and looked down at her own body and at the knife in her hands. Confused, Hattori let go of the knife. She was frightened as if she couldn't understand what she'd just done. The pallor that came to her face spelled it out clearly. She shook her head a number of times, and so did the knife. Still begging for help, she reached her hand out to my body and began to draw near to it. The one there on the screen right now wasn't the Hattori I knew. Is this the one thing is this the first time he's really noticing that she's not normal when he's not around? I mean, he's obviously noticed the childlike acting. Well, not acting, but you know what I mean. Behavior from her. Is this the first time he's realized that she doesn't say very much when he's not around and seems very... I almost want to say polite, but then again, I guess if you can't say anything, you can't. Guess that makes it kind of seem polite anyway. Yeah, I guess you can't say, well, I guess if somebody don't talk, you could call them rude in some instances, but yeah, you know what I mean. Hattori spoke those suspicious words while idly toying with a knife, and the Hattori desperately seeking help with her face warped in fear. Two of them were clearly different people. The shadow of Inabushi Keiko immediately rose in my mind. One is Inabushi, the other is Hattori. Is that how it was? On top of that, the timing of her personality change lined up with that of the space-time transfers. A suffocating uneasiness overcame me. I'd reached one conclusion, but it was still too soon. There still wasn't enough evidence yet. Just now Itsumi was joining them on screen and the scene turned into a brawl. Hattori began running amok. My body cried out while it did its best to hold her back. Itsumi brandished the knife and with the face of a demon she attacked. Ini was crouched nearby with blood flowing from a wound to his forehead. I'd reached my limit. Forcing myself to look straight ahead, I firmly closed the file as if to erase it. The behavior of lunatics who'd cut out their own human hearts had shaken me to the very core. A somber air seemed to surround me. Unable to stand it, I stood up from the console and began walking around the dimly lit room. There was a coffee maker in the corner. Hoping for a change of pace, I swiftly made some coffee. Poured it into a cup and gulped it down. It was completely tasteless to me. But I might have felt that way just because the cup was the same one Inamoto had used. Even so, I was somehow able to calm myself down. I placed the empty cup on top of the console and pulled up the last of the recordings. Files from January 15th. I'd already seen everything in here once, but it was certainly possible that I'd overlooked something. Couldn't leave without making sure. After all, this was the day I drank the DMT and the Mao inhibitor. January 15th, 7:43 a.m. Dining area. When I asked her about the DMT and the Mao inhibitor, Hattori said that maybe I drank it myself. Just as she'd said that, the recording showed that as well. When my body began to doze off, it wandered into the dining area, rubbing its eyes. I really shouldn't record a while after eating. His steps were shaky like a sleepwalker's. His body wavering to the left and to the right, just barely managing to reach the table. There were two bottles under the table. The bottles containing the DMT and the Mao inhibitor. My body picked up the bottles, staring at them with great interest. And then, I have no idea what it was thinking, but it suddenly drained the contents of both bottles in a few great gulps. Without anyone forcing it or leading it on, my body drank both bottles of medicine on its own, without the slightest apparent hesitation. I couldn't think of its actions as anything but a gravely foolish snap decision. Yeah, that's why it's important to have child-proof caps on your medicine if you have children. The effects of the drugs immediately began to show. In just 1 minute after that, I'm assuming it anyway. Body fell to its knees, then dropped heavily to the floor, its head slowly bowing like an ear of rice. Ear of rice? Okay. Does rice come on an ear like an ear of corn? My forehead went to the floor. My arms were thrown out haphazardly to either side. Next transfer probably occurred right after this. There was no mistake. My memory from the 15th began with me lying like this after all. Afterward, trying to get up after transfer, still helpless to move, I fell face up and lay there immobile. The one who nursed me back to health was Utsumi. Utsumi carried me to my room and administered an antidote to counteract the drug. From then until the afternoon, I lay on my own bed, sound asleep. And there ends my analysis and the episode. Very interesting. We're definitely going to be getting some answers pretty soon, I have a feeling for. Also, in the last episode, Daniel left me a comment saying good luck, so I'm guessing it's getting very, very close to the ending, so. Very interesting. That's the first time he's really... Yeah, that was the first time he really, I guess, noticed that there was a difference between Hattori and, well, the way she is when he's around and when he's not around, I guess you could say. So yeah, that'll be interesting. I mean, I still don't... Yeah, I think I do get some of it, but there's a lot of it I don't. Anyway, I do sincerely hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Farewell there.